thank you, Glenn, for joining this Frontline conversation. One of the incredible things about LGW is that we have members like you, Glenn, who are spending their time really making a difference in our community. So Frontline's conversation is a chance for us at LGW to spotlight great efforts by you. I do want to thank PNC as a sponsor of this series of conversation. And I look forward to getting many of your questions. As Chase said, put your questions in the question and answer. I won't necessarily be tracking the chat feature. Thank you for saying hi in chat, but if you have questions for Glenn, please put them in the question feature, and more than happy to get to as many of those as possible. So Glenn, as I said, I'm a big fan of yours, the great work that you've been doing, so push Doug aside, but I do love the question that Doug always starts these conversations with. How are you doing right now?
Oh, Mahan, thank you. And let me say I'm excited to be talking with you. We love Doug and Debbie and the team at Leadership Greater Washington. I can't start without giving a big shout to the class of 2010, Tenacious, right? The greatest class. So it's good to see.
Glenn, I do have to interrupt you. Might be the second best. 1998 was the best. Okay, Tenacious second best. Go for it.
Well, we'll take it. We'll split it with you for this conversation. How about that? Thanks, Mahan. So yes, I'm super excited to be with you all, and I am doing well. And thank you for starting with that question. I think that's very thoughtful in these times where there's so much going on all around us. I am doing well. My family is well, safe and healthy. And as far as we know, the members in our network of nonprofits are also doing well in this pandemic.
Yeah, so sticking a little bit more on the personal front, Glenn, before transitioning over to the network of nonprofits, that's where the conversation is going to be. The past 7 months have been challenging for a whole host of reasons for many people, most specifically people of color, African Americans. So what have you been experiencing, and what personally have you been going through? Again, before we talk about the organization.
Yeah, great question. So I'll tell you that the family conversations have gotten more vibrant, albeit via Zoom as well, given social distancing. We are all, as I'm sure you are and others, paying very close attention to the unrest across the country and issues around the world, having more conversations with our young people and family members about what is happening, because it's all over the place. You can't avoid it, so you're having to discuss it. A lot of reading, great readings, Dr. Ibram Kendi, all of his books, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Stamped, and others, and also reading children's versions of those pieces, many of which were authored or co-authored by Jason Reynolds. So finding ways to sort of illustrate what's happening, break down those very complex terms and issues to a place where our young people can also understand it.
And at the same time, Glenn, obviously the community needs have increased, and also the nonprofits have come under a lot of strain. What have you been seeing both with respect to community needs and the nonprofit community too?
Well, it's not new, which is quite unfortunate. We've seen quite a few emergency situations and crisis circumstances, both in the tenure of the Center for Nonprofit Advancement, 41 years, and in my leadership of the organization, now going on 13 years. So we saw and experienced the Great Recession. I was aware and understood Hurricane Katrina. There's so many more. And now with what we're now realizing are two pandemics affecting the community and in our world, both COVID-19, the health emergency, as well as the racial injustice and murders that we've seen play out right in front of us, social media and on the news. We're seeing that organizations, once again, nonprofit organizations, have to step into the gap and support the strengthening of communities and the support of people in need. So our organizations have once again doubled down. They have found ways to do more with less. They're focusing on their own sustainability, creative ways to raise dollars, while also focusing on supporting their constituents or the people and the mission that they put forward. So nothing new there. The center, however, we have had to do more. I mean, we see ourselves, I guess if I could describe the Center for Nonprofit Advancement in 2 words, it would probably be authentic and intentional, because we really understand that we are in service to the region and in partnership with nonprofits to make sure and accountable to them to make sure they're strong enough to serve. So we've found creative ways, which I know we'll talk more about, to support organizations during these challenging times.
Yeah, that's a great bridge to that, Glenn. I am curious, what is it that you're doing, and how are you supporting these nonprofits in meeting the needs in the community?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we realized from experience is that having a temporary or intermittent focus on key issues is not enough. Long-term sort of foundation focus, building something from a foundation is what's needed. So we launched two very big and very pivotal programs, I'll call them. One is our sector rebuilding campaign. It's a 3-year initiative, at least, to help organizations realize how they can operate in this new normal. Looking at things that for some of us might come easy, but for organizations in need, maybe not as much. Crisis management, technical assistance, how to reorganize team members and reorganize the organization to prepare for what's to come. We're looking at education and ways to move through from merger and acquisition to looking at other ways to reduce costs while also increasing revenue. Those are some of the core components of the sector rebuilding campaign. And I will say that our partnership with other sectors is just as important as the service we provide nonprofits, right? Because without philanthropy, without government, without the corporate sector, we can't solve the challenges of the region. I'll pause for a second and say, I too want to thank PNC, specifically, and to shout out to Sonia McCormick, LGW class of 2010, by the way, tenacious. One more for us, because corporations like PNC and others, they too play an important and pivotal role. So we're looking at cross-sector support, influence, and ways to really help lift all organizations to make it through this pandemic, the health emergency. Separate from that, we launched an entire new center within the center. It's our new Center for Race, Equity, Justice, and Inclusion. That center has its own focus to really help ensure that our organizations are more equitable, philanthropy and business and corporations as well, that they're doing race equity audits, they're understanding challenges and opportunities to get stronger in their focus, so that diversity and equity and inclusion is commonplace in all organizations and all individuals can be equally leveraged, influenced, and supported.
First of all, thank you for that shout out to Sonia and PNC, Glenn, because that's part of the intention behind LGW. So I am thrilled to hear that she was part of your class, and through that, it's gotten PNC involved in the effort. So that's wonderful to hear.
Sure.
Now, with respect to the nonprofit community, what might be a couple of examples that you can give of organizations that you see are embracing your initiatives well and are adjusting effectively in serving the community's needs?
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few examples. And let me say, for those two initiatives that we launched, we did what I realized to be the hardest thing in responding to an emergency. We launched a study. And oftentimes, because we've been through this so often, we know what the challenge is, we think. We're ready to roll our sleeves up and to get right in. But we were very intentional. I mentioned those two words for us, authentic and intentional. Intentional in launching a study to confirm our thinking, to understand more specifically the COVID-19 impact on nonprofits, and specifically where we were as a sector, a region, for race equity or inequities in some cases. Now, what we did as a compromise is we launched the study while simultaneously working. And the study was intentional in that we partnered with philanthropy. We partnered with other capacity building organizations and associations to gather what we refer to as our people. And by doing that, we got grantee lists, we got client lists, and we created one big ball, several thousand nonprofits, removed the duplicates, and then sent the invitation for the first phase survey to just a core group of organizations. What we got from that were 255 usable responses that gave good responses to questions we all wanted answers to. And through that study, we now understand that the diverse group of organizations we call our region, nonprofits in our region, are all being met with specific challenges. And I'll just touch on one as we move forward. More than 65% of those organizations relate, which we knew, that revenue is down since the pandemic began and the need for services is up. We understood that. And with revenue being down and the need for services being up, organizations are also reporting that they're spending more on PPE and other things that were unbudgeted relative to the pandemic. The other thing we realized on the race equity side of things was that there are inequities. Organizations led by people of color, led by Black leaders, are having a different set of challenges than organizations led by their white counterparts. One in particular for organizations that are level in years in service and sort of capacity and capabilities is our organizations led by Black leaders are needing more operational support, believing also that they have the diversity, equity, and inclusion advancements that one would say are within best practice. And our organizations led by white leaders are thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, believe they don't have it together, but don't necessarily know how they will make progress in that space. So there are some inequities and there's so much more which came out, and happy to sort of share more of that detail, which is on our website.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious to hear about that, Glenn, because for the many years I've been involved in the community, specifically in the nonprofit community, this has been a conversation point. But I'm not sure I would say that the needle has moved up as much as it should have over the years. So, two-part question. One, what gives you hope that the needle would move further this time around? And what are you and the organizations you're involved with doing to make sure that this time it is changed for good, not another one of the, again, studies that 10 years from now we reflect back and nice intentions, but didn't change much?
Wow, Mahan, great question. So I think, like you, I've been in the space long enough to see the ebb and flow of focus on diversity or focus on race equity and to see it come and go. One point in particular was sort of 2009 or 2010, where there was a big initiative, Baltimore and Washington together working in this area and space, and it went away. What's different now is that we have no choice as a nation than to deal with the issues head on. And we started talking about that on a sort of CEO network group that meets monthly that I'm a part of. And the idea is that you can't avoid it in the workplace. You can't avoid it within your family. So you're having to address it one way or another. So I think that's a little different. Social media has made it different and seeing it right in front of us every day. So what we're doing as an organization is we are being very transparent in the work we're providing for the sector. And this is for all subsectors as well. We're looking at race equity audits to understand how well those who believe they're doing a great job are actually doing. We're pulling best practices for policies, for bylaws, and other documents that will outlast the leadership and other senior team members to make sure that those are instilled. And we're identifying ways where people who believe that they are not being treated fairly can share that in a safe way without fear for retaliation. So we have whistleblower policies for financial improprieties. We should have the same for equity and inclusion challenges. So we're fighting and we're pushing really hard. And we know that this is a moment with support from all sectors, given what we're all experiencing together, where everyone wants to make a difference. And I don't think we're gonna let go this time and sort of move on to the next priority. I think this is a staple priority for us.
I love that, Glenn. I love it because it shows that you are determined to make sure that this moment, the nonprofits can really take advantage of the opportunity to make change lasting and permanent, not just in with respect to the words that they say. Now, you alluded to it briefly, but you've also you have a nonprofit leadership series for Black professionals.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and what that is all about.
Yeah, so that is one of the pieces coming out of our new Center for Race, Equity, Justice, and Inclusion. So it's great to do the study. it's good to roll your sleeves up, but what signature programming will you offer to solve these challenges and occurrences? And our leadership series for Black professionals is one. And there's several other things in there as well. But that particular series, for the very first time, brought together Black professionals from our local region to hear from leaders, to learn together, and to really share their stories and support each other for what it means not just to be excellent in their current capacity, but to grow into a deeper leadership capacity, maybe even that first executive directorship. I'll tell you that it was very interesting, and I always say the center has the best board at the best times, and to have a board that is as nimble as the one we have today and able to respond quickly to issues in the space really means a lot. When we announced that we were hosting this leadership series for Black professionals, everyone responded with excitement. Great, another series for people of color. I'm like, no, this is a series for Black professionals. I'm like, great, can we invite some other people of color? So it took a while for it to be digested that this was just for Black professionals. And once the series got underway, we all understood why it was so important. So I think, and we have found that it's important to have shared space within culture and then shared space that is more diverse, because there are certain challenge areas or support areas that are needed to be addressed first within that individualized cultural space. So we enjoyed it. We will be doing it again at the request of so many other leaders who couldn't get into this first groundbreaking series, and look forward to more sort of culture-specific opportunities for people to get together.
And that is fantastic, because again, it's needed within the community. And as you're doing this, as you're developing both the Black professionals and the relationships that these programs develop, it ends up impacting the organizations, the nonprofits they're involved with, and the community. So I'm just curious, as you project over the next few years for the nonprofit sector, what do you see within the crystal ball? And I understand a lot has changed over the past few months, and none of us have a crystal ball. But as you foresee the future, what changes do you see happening within the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, I think much more accountability. And you alluded to this, sort of previous efforts to solve problems or challenges, and then it changes to another priority. I think this is such a transparent focus now that those who are not on board, who begin to try to make advancements but are unsuccessful, who aren't able to collaborate and sort of build strength with others, will be noticed, and everyone will be accountable. I think our organizations are really accountable to meeting their mission. They've done a great job making that happen, in some cases with less. We want to know that all subsectors, all sectors in the space are accountable to doing what they said they would do. And people have made a lot of sort of pledges. We saw a dozen or more sign-on letters from organizations after the murder of George Floyd. The time is now, and we're all going to hold each other accountable to get things done. So through the crystal ball, that's one thing I see: advancements, progress under the auspices or the theme of accountability. The other thing I see is sustainability. This is now maybe the fourth time in my tenure that we have seen resources get compromised for nonprofits. We've seen it happen for our foundation and corporate partners just the same. So diversified revenue streams, forecasting and building even a bigger rainy day fund or reserves is also something I anticipate for our organizations who are so needed and planning to be around for the foreseeable future.
That's fantastic. And actually, Carolyn Rutt says, as incoming chair of the DC Chamber of Commerce, congratulations, Carolyn. Even pre-pandemic, I had as one of the growth areas of the chamber was increasing nonprofit membership. How can the chamber be a meaningful partner to your organization and the nonprofit community in Washington, D.C., and maybe slightly broadening that, both the chamber and the business community? How can the business community be supportive of both your work and also the work of the broader nonprofit community?
That's awesome. Carolyn is great. Class of 2010, again, by the way, Mahan. No, yeah.
You are rocking it this time. I have to give it to you.
I'm not gonna press you on that. But Carolyn is fantastic, and I'm glad she's there at the chamber. And I will say, as we talked about subsectors or collaboration, we're not going to make it without collaborating with each other or working together. We realized that during the recession. We're seeing it play out once again now. I think there's so much transferable between nonprofits and businesses. If you want to categorize small or large businesses, sure. But working together, coming up with ways where we can be in each other's space, learning and networking together, I think is what sparks collaboration and partnership. So we are open to that. I will say the center has been supporting a great deal, maybe 230 now, small businesses, which are called or in a Main Street corridor. This has been a partnership with DC's Department of Small and Local Business Development. There are main streets across the country. Two here is Upper Georgia Avenue and the Parks Main Street. And the two together have about 230 small businesses who are having some of the same challenges around social media and marketing and communications, even financial management. So there's space for us to lift the region up together, and I'd be happy to talk more about that in partnership with the DC Chamber.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, obviously, you have been leading through all of these challenges, transitions. How has the leadership been working with your team in trying to both shift slightly the focus and also the impact of the organization?
Sure. So the center team is amazing. We are a little unusual. There was a time where people said, you're lucky if you get 2 years out of millennials. We've had our average stay 6 years for people coming on to our staff team. We had a millennial who was a millennial who's now no longer, has been with us for 10 years. Taylor Strange, who actually did an internship with Leadership Greater Washington during 2010, which is where she and I came in contact, and ultimately she came to the center. So the team is phenomenal. We did such a great job shifting from in-person capacity building to all virtual. There's been a 200 to 300% increase in participation. We're meeting organizations and people where they are, even if it means they're in their pajamas, and getting things done. So I think professional development, as much as we provide it for nonprofit organizations, is important within the team, as well as a clear understanding for joint leadership and growth with each of us together. So we've taken this thing on. We're a small but mighty team, about a dozen of us, FTE, with tentacles. And I say that because there are probably about 50 plus consultants, short-term individuals who are with us as needed so that we can expand and then contract as necessary, like any other association. But we love the work we're doing together and know that we are accountable and here to serve.
And Glenn, how has this being forced in some respects to work remotely, how has this changed how you all interact with each other? And again, how you interact with the community that you serve?
Yeah, so it has increased the volume, which I'm sure may be true for others. I've heard this from so many other folks in different sectors. It's not unusual for someone to say, I'll give you a call at 8 or we'll Zoom at 7. Some people say we are not working from home, we're living at work because at any moment you can click a link and there's 60 people waiting to talk to you. So it has changed the volume, and we're now having to try to reshift and calibrate the culture because we want to make sure that we are well. The passion in some cases can outweigh your focus on your own health and well-being, and we don't want people to sort of burn out, if you would. So we're really focusing on boundaries from a virtual space, timing, and making sure that we sort of refill our cups so that we can do more on the following day. And the same is true for our nonprofit partners and the other organizations and businesses in our network. People are really pushing the limits. They have gone way beyond saving the commute time to sort of working well into the night and early the next morning. So we are encouraging people and organizations to live in this environment, not with the notion it will be over in a week or a month or a year, but get good at it. And some of that is the culture shift that we're now promoting and supporting organizations to do.
That is such a brilliant point. And it is so hard. We actually had a conversation, LGW Leadership Today series yesterday, and talking about the fact that this is stressing employees systems beyond anything anyone had anticipated. And it can have an impact if the leader is not great at drawing boundaries and barriers to sort of protect people. As you said, it almost as if we are working, we're not working at home, we are living at work
That's right.
on an ongoing basis. So, how do you, Glenn, make sure that you maintain a certain level of that balance in your life? Because part of what I've seen with a lot of nonprofit leaders is because the need is so huge, because of the crisis and the need to adjust, they haven't been as capable in balancing their own lives. So they are burning out. How do you approach it yourself?
Yeah, Mahan, great question. So I have realized the need to come up with more sort of regiments and the need to focus on even getting air and sunlight. Because I recognize how much the walk or commute from one meeting to the next helped me to sort of refocus, readjust, and get ready. But when you're in the home in front of the glass, as they say, for all 8 hours or so, you don't get that. So getting up really early in the morning and getting out a few miles walking or whatever might be necessary has been helpful. Taking those breaks in between as well, and also at the end. And then taking time to do absolutely nothing. When you're on the screen for work all day, and then you're on the screen for social media, and then you're on the screen for whatever else, you really want some nothing work so you can truly disconnect and really have some time to sort of reconnect with yourself and your family. So that has been good for me to make those alarms, make those own personal appointments, and force those things to happen. Otherwise, I sort of start to feel like I'm sort of breaking down. So the more I do it, the better I am.
Yes, fantastic. And as you have been telling your team and everyone around you, part of what we are also telling everyone is that this is going to be the long term. A lot of people were anticipating a short return to some level of normalcy. That won't be the case. So it might as well incorporate things that help you take care of yourself. So Kimberly says, absolutely agree with Glenn about scheduling time for self-care, getting air and sunlight. Yes, and
Yes.
absolutely. There are days you might not even know it's sunny outside.
Right.
And let's see, Carolyn, by the way, also says she's also a Trojan from Virginia State
That's
University.
right. That's right. Mahan, we're winning here.
You absolutely,
I love
absolutely
VSU.
are. I do have to move up 2010 to the second best class, I
All
think.
right.
Now, Glenn, I know you also have 41st annual celebration coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So thank you for asking about that as well. So every year we celebrate the success of the sector and we project what we will need to do as a collective body going forward. And this year, like all others, it is going to be an amazing annual celebration. We always have a really good featured guest, and the last three have been racial equity focused leaders with Soledad O'Brien in 2018 and Dr. Ibram Kendi, whose readings I mentioned earlier in 2019. And this year it's Jason Reynolds, an amazing author who's co-written books with Dr. Ibram Kendi on race equity issues in a way that's exciting and engaging for children, but also engaging for people who just can't deal with the complexities and really want to learn and understand what's happening in the community. So Jason Reynolds will be with us as our featured guest. We will have our Public Policy Leadership Awards once more, and also our Excellence in Chief Executive Leadership Awards. The most exciting thing, and Taylor and the team at the center is excited about this, is a new platform that is virtual, but really keeps you in reality. You can see the tables. You can see who sponsored those tables. You can see the seats at the tables and hover over those seats, see the card of who's sitting there and have one-on-one conversations or small groups. So we're excited to try this. It's going to be on November the 19th. It's all virtual. I think we're having breakfast delivered to everyone who registers. Everyone gets a signed copy of Jason's book for everyone. We're going all out to try to figure out this virtual reality, as I mentioned, and live in this space and not anticipate it changing anytime soon.
That is fantastic. And we're going to ask Chase to send a link to everyone so they can join on November 19th, enjoy the breakfast, enjoy the sort of virtual reality interactions, but also more importantly, support the great work that you do.
Oh, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. We are delighted to work with Leadership Greater Washington. Like anybody else who's participated in the organization, I will tell you that my time in 2010 doing and going through the program really shifted my network in a great and good way, and also shifted the way in which I was able to know deeply and work with people from other sectors as well as the nonprofit sector. So amazing work in organization, and we're excited to continue to partner with you all on specific initiatives just as well.
That is outstanding to hear. By the way, Chase put a link to the celebration in chat. Would encourage everyone to participate in that. You already mentioned a couple of your 2010 classmates, Glen. Anyone else over the past 7-8 months from Leadership Greater Washington has reached out to you, has been supportive with respect to the work that you're doing right now?
Yes, I would say all. The easier question to answer would be who has not reached out. We're a very tight class, and we get together in groups of 2 or 3 or the full class. Sonia's done a great job, and others, in organizing our happy hours here recently, virtual happy hours, by the way. And I've been negligent. I've missed the last 2 with family commitments, but I won't miss again. But I'll also say that Doug and Debbie and the team at Leadership Greater Washington has also continued to sort of work in tandem with what we're doing at the center and with other organizations to collaborate. So one big family, and it is cross-class. I'll call it fertilization because I engage with Leadership Greater Washington members all the time in all spaces and places. So I appreciate and enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful to hear, Glen, because again, even as the connection you mentioned with Sonia or the other connections, whether with Carolyn, it's the opportunity to connect so we all do more good in our community supporting each other.
Right.
So what else, in addition, obviously, to joining you at the annual celebration, what else can LGW members do to support you with the great work that you're doing in the community?
Yeah, you know what? I think it is a matter of staying in touch and being engaged. So the center does a really good job by way of social media for quick bites of information, our website, and a few other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in the nonprofit sector. We also are happy to share what's happening in other sectors, as we've done well. One region, collectively, we're working to lift the opportunities. If there are opportunities to support the work of direct service nonprofits, the center has also been really good to connect people with organizations that they're interested in. We have a large grouping of human service organizations, happy to provide those contacts and connections as well. And just remaining collaborative in the space, being honest and true in this space, and accountable, as you and I touched on earlier. Those are the key things that I would say will continue to make us a vibrant sector as we grow together.
Absolutely, Glen. And as you also mentioned earlier, the team at LGW does a fabulous job. Doug leading a great organization and great team. That said, I am thrilled that they gave me the opportunity to have this conversation with you, because I do think one of the parts that makes LGW so special is the people like you who on a daily basis are working hard to make our community better, to have an impact in people's lives. So the more we can do as an LGW membership and community to support your efforts, the better it is for all of us. So on behalf of all the members, I thank you for being part of this conversation. More importantly, thank you for all the great work that you're doing, both with your center and for our community.
Mahan, you were great and amazing, and thank you for that. And thank you for your work and your leadership as chair, which is no easy task for any organization. The level of commitment and dedication and partnership that the chair has with the leadership in the organization is paramount. So thank you for that. It shows, and I'm looking forward to finding more and creative ways to work with the organization and with others.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Glen. And I do want to mention that we have another Frontlines conversation on Tuesday, November 12th at 11 a.m. with Victor Hoskins. And also for any of you that might not know, next Tuesday there's a election coming up. Actually, I voted yesterday, so I'm happy I banked my vote. But we do have an election coming up. Bruce Mehlman is a brilliant strategist and political analyst. He's going to be talking about the upcoming election and also the potential impact of it and implications with the pandemic and politics. Thank you all, Ed, Kira, a lot of shout outs to you, Glen. We're really excited. Hugo says, I'm inspired by Glen and a group of leaders from LGW changing the landscape in the city. I would love more to learn more. Fantastic. I mentioned Edwin Washington, Janice Frayango. Great job, Glen. So you're getting a lot of shout outs, Glen, for the great job you did here. But again, more importantly, the great work you're doing. And you're getting shout outs for 2010. So there's something about 2010.
I think we're moving to number one, Mahan.
You are, Glen. You are, Glen. It is fabulous. Thank you all for joining, and thank you for being part of this. Look forward to seeing you at more conversations. Tracy gives you a shout out. So you're getting lots of shout outs. I'll hang around a couple of more minutes to read the shout outs to you. And Erica, same thing. So it's wonderful, Glen.
Yeah, these are great people who are all working really hard, and we have the shared vision. So I do want to express my gratitude to everyone who joined and for the shout outs. We can't do it alone as individuals or as organizations. So that speaks volumes to why we're here.
Lupi gives you a shout out too. I know Lupi does great work. So
he's a new board member at the center.
This is one of the wonderful things about LGW and the LGW community. A lot of people doing great work in the community and then getting inspiration from people like you, Glen. As I said, I see if you don't follow Glen on Twitter, follow him on Twitter. For those of you who are out there, he is a bright light of inspiration, which I absolutely love. Whenever I'm feeling down, I scroll enough to see one of your posts, Glen. That picks me up.
That's going to get you a direct message in the middle of the night. Thank you, Mahan. I appreciate you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. Look forward, hopefully, to seeing you on Friday in the conversation with Bruce Mehlman. Have a wonderful day.
Take care. Bye-bye.